How many of you like HGTV? It is my favorite binge watching channel. Now, if you go to Pastor Henderson's house, they got Food Network on all the time. And that used to be my binge, except after 14 years of being a stay-at-home mom, cooking 3 meals a day, I am so over the cooking thing. I am just over it. Y'all pray for my husband. I still got one son left at home, so I can't be totally over it. So I've graduated from Food Network, and now I'm on to HGTV because I'm really still looking for my dream home. I'm really waiting. I wish somebody would sign me up to be on one of these shows. I'm waiting, y'all. I ain't ashamed. Bring the cameras into my house, all of it. Get me a new house. But one of my favorite shows is Love It or List It. How many of you all have seen that one? So Chris and I watch it and kind of take bets on which way it's going to go. But I love the fact that it's usually a couple, husband and wife, and they realize that their current situation no longer fits them. The home that once was everything they wanted now isn't good enough, and they need something new. So they call in Hillary, and I don't even remember the realtor's name because I'm always rooting for Hillary. But they call in Hillary and old dude to come and what's his name? David, thank you. To fix their solution. So Hillary, of course, says, just tell me how much money I have and I can make this old house new. I can give you what you need. And of course, David says, nope, it doesn't matter what she does, it won't be enough. You need a totally new home. And David goes out and shows them real estate, and Hillary is there breaking down walls. Everybody wants an open concept these days, and fixing up the kitchen and the bedroom. It's funny, no matter how much money they give her, it's never enough to do everything they want. And then at the end, the couple gets to decide, do we love it or do we list it? And again, we always are sitting there when Chris decides to join me in my guilty pleasure, which is not often because it's a decorating show and he just thinks he's too manly for that. But we take these bets on who's going to win, Hillary or David. But what I find interesting is that these people trust Hillary and David, whom they've never met, don't know from a hole in the wall. They've only seen them on the show, to come in and meet my need. Give me what I need. And the reason they trust them, of course, is because they've seen them on television and they have a reference. They've seen their previous work, and because of what they did in the past, these homeowners believe you can help me in my present predicament. All because I've seen it on TV. It reminds me of the old adage, seeing is believing. We've come out of our 2020 series, this is 2020 that we started the new year on, and Pastor talked to us about the importance of fixing our eyes on Jesus. That we needed to fix our eyes on Jesus and be in alignment so that we could see what he sees. And when we see what he sees, we can begin to declare what he sees. And as we declare what we see in the spiritual, it will begin to manifest itself in this present reality. If we fix our eyes on Jesus. But how many of you know that there is a step between seeing and decreeing? That step is called belief. Because there's a lot of things I see that I don't believe. I don't believe the magic tricks I see. I didn't believe the news story that came across Sunday. There's a lot of things we see, but they don't necessarily predicate belief. But often, we won't believe until we see. And I'm so glad we have a God who understands us. The scripture says he made us and he understands our frame. He understands that we are but dust, that we are fragile. He's not disappointed in us. He loves us. And so he said, I'm not asking you to follow me blindly. I'm not asking you to trust me blindly. I'm going to give you a reference point. Because I understand when I tell you to follow me, especially when you're in the beginning of this walk with me, you need to see so you can believe. He's so gracious that he inspired a whole New Testament writer to give us proof, to give us what we could see, to lead us into belief. The Gospel of John is that book. And while every gospel writer has a different perspective, John is one of the few who wrote with a specific aim. John, although part of the four gospels, it's different than the other three. Any of you who have been with us for a little bit know that John is my favorite book. It is my favorite of the four gospels. John uses language that the other three do not. He uses words like light and word and belief and light. John doesn't do a genealogy or a birth narrative. He jumps right into the ministry of Jesus. And John writes with a specific focus. In John 20:31, he says this. And truly, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written, that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. Did y'all know Jesus came with references? He came with something for us to refer back to. And John says the signs are his handiwork to show you what he can do, what he will do, not only then, but now. One of my favorite songs is If He Did It Before, He'll Do It Again. Same God back then, same God right now. So the signs in the book of John are the miracles, and they are a reference point for us. John is the only one who uses the word signs for Jesus' miracles, because the signs are not about Jesus' power as much as they are about his person and his promises. The other gospel writers wanted us to know that Jesus was indeed fully man and fully God, that he was the king who had come to inaugurate in the kingdom. And John wanted you to know all of that, but John also wanted you to know that he was God with us. He was God in us. That everything about his life concerned us. He was not only the Messiah that came to establish a kingdom, he was the Messiah that came to save your life. Only if you believe. And belief goes beyond just understanding or accepting something as true. See, a lot of us hear the word and we believe it intellectually, but Monday through Saturday we live like atheists. Belief is more than a mental agreement with a fact. At least a belief that leads to life. See, belief means to fully put our confidence, trust, and reliance on. If there was a chair here and I sat down in it, it's because I believe that the chair is going to hold me. True belief leads to action. Not just stuffing ourselves with information so we can say how much we know, yet our lives don't look anything like what we believe. So the signs were given not so that you could quote the signs of Jesus and point to your acquisition of knowledge. The signs were given that you might sit in him, put your trust in him, relax in him, give him the steering wheel, and you get in the passenger seat. In fact, get in the back seat so that you can't grab the wheel every now and then. That's the kind of belief John is talking about. And it's still not belief just to believe. It is belief that leads to life. We think life is made up of the accumulation of things, of our bank account, of our home, even of our relationships. And while they are blessings in life, true life is unobstructed, uninterrupted relationship with the Father. It is when his love flows through you and fills you up, and it becomes the motivation and source of all you do. John said, I write these things. I give you these reference points that in believing on him, you might have life. So as we start this series, Seeing is Believing, we're going to spend some time talking about the signs. Because see, some of you don't believe. Some of you still question his goodness. Some of you believe he's good for others, but he won't be good to you. When we get finished, we want you to believe because we want you to have life. So we're going to look at the first sign today, John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, the changing the water into wine. I just love it that Jesus did his first miracle at a wedding, at a party. Jesus likes to have fun. Don't let nobody tell you anything different. So he is in Cana with his disciples, and they go to a wedding where his mother, Mary, is. And it appears from the scripture that Mary had some role in this wedding. She was someone important. Perhaps she knew the family intimately. It was almost like she was the wedding planner. And so when Jesus and his posse showed up, they were invited guests of Mary. But then something bad happened, y'all. The wine ran out. Oh no. Don't get no ideas. But it was commonplace to drink wine in these times, especially at a celebration, at the wedding feast. Did y'all know wedding feasts back then could last for a whole week? They liked to party. They liked to celebrate. Pastor and I were talking about this week. We have lost the ability to celebrate. Somewhere along the line, somebody told us that it was a bad thing to celebrate what God is doing and has done in your life. Jesus said, no, turn up. Let's have a party. It's time to celebrate in line with him. Not the world's turn up, Jesus' turn up. And running out of wine at an event like this was a social taboo. It was a no. You could be talked about for days, for weeks and months. So Mary, being whatever role she had, goes to Jesus and says, son, the wine ran out. And he says this thing, which the commentators go back and forth about what it means, but he said, woman, don't try that, kids. He said, woman, what has that to do with me? My hour has not yet come. Yeah, he Jesus, y'all ain't. Don't try the woman thing with your mama. It won't be good. I promise you that. And I believe what he was saying was, I will act for my goal, not for yours. When I move in a situation, it is to accomplish my purposes, which might include meeting your need. But you can't dictate to me when to show my power. See, some of us still believe Jesus is a genie, that we just gonna rub the lamp, say a few words, and he gonna pop out and do whatever we want him to do. Or we used to tell the kids in youth group, he's a vendor. You think he's a vending machine. If I pray enough, read enough, go to church enough, well, I've put in enough, so now, Jesus, whatever I ask, you're supposed to give it back to me. He said, no. My hour has not yet come. When I move, believe me, it will be for my purposes, not for yours. But Mary, knowing her son, said to the servants, do whatever he says. She was put in her place, but she knew her son's heart. And so we go to verse 6 through 11, and it says, now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. And Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. And they filled them to the brim. And he said to them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. So they took it. And when the master of the feast tasted the water now become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, everyone serves the good wine first, and then when people have drunk freely, meaning they drunk, then they pour the good wine or the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now. This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. The servants go. They take these stone jars. The stone jars were filled with water because the Jews were all about being clean on the outside. And so before you could come to the wedding feast, you had to wash your hands and you had to wash your feet. Did y'all know we go into a wedding feast? That the Bible tells us that when the church is united with Jesus, we gonna have a party, but you do have to be clean to be invited to the party. But the Jews thought that the water was going to do the trick. So they had these 6 stone jars that were filled with about 120 gallons of water. And I love it. Jesus didn't say a prayer. He didn't raise his hand. He didn't clap his hands. He didn't say any magic words. All he said was draw and take it to the master of the feast. And without anyone knowing, a miracle had been performed. And it is the miracle of transformation. When my oldest son was about 2 or 3, he told us to buy he wanted a transformer for Christmas. Remember that? How many of you remember the transformer, the animated one, not the movies? The movies are trash, but the animated series is good. So we bought him, was it Optimus Prime? Or was it Bumblebee? It was Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime is a transformer, but it transforms into a truck or a car. So we, first kid, not knowing what we were doing, we buy this transformer for this 2 or 3-year-old. And he opens it up, and the first thing he says is, "This is cool, now transform it for me." We pulled out the directions. Chris and I huddled over together trying to figure out how to turn this transformer into a truck. He plays with it for 30 minutes, brings it back and says, "Mommy, Daddy, transform it again." After about the 4th time, I said, "You know what? It's going to stay a truck or Optimus Prime. It will transform when you're old enough to do it yourself. I'm done. I'm over it." We are amazed at transformation. To transform is to change from one form to another, to make a thorough or dramatic change in the form, the appearance, the very nature of a thing. See, God has scientifically created the earth for transformation, but he also controls transformation. He can take what nature usually takes years to do, and by simply speaking a word, he does it just like that. He doesn't need an instruction guide. It doesn't take him forever. All it does is takes him in the midst of a situation to transform it into something else. See, Jesus wants you to know he can transform religion into relationship. Some of us might think it's silly that the Jews thought that those stone water pots filled with water were actually doing something. But we're just like them. We think if we come to church and we read the Bible and we say our prayers, that somehow transformation is just supposed to magically take place. Or worse yet, we know we're only cleaning the outside and we've left the inside totally untouched. But when we submit our religious practices and disciplines to Jesus, he transforms what is only water into new wine. He fills us up with his very life so that the practices now have meaning. So many of us are stuck in religious practices, thinking they're going to give us life, and we're frustrated because they've given us nothing but water. And we come to church Sunday after Sunday wondering why we haven't changed. Not understanding that the practices are merely to get us into alignment so that Jesus can do what only he can do, which is give us new wine. When we submit those practices, when we admit that those practices haven't served us well, and when we're ready for something more, Jesus can transform religion into relationship. He can also take obstacles and transform them into opportunities. See, not having enough wine at the wedding, that was an obstacle. I love the fact that he did this miracle at a wedding over something as what we might think insignificant as wine, because what he's trying to show you is he cares about the details of your life. What is a crisis to you may not be a crisis to somebody else, but it's a crisis to him because you belong to him. I have to tell my young people often, no, you can pray to God about anything. He's just as concerned about the grade on the test and the pressure at school as he is about the cancer diagnosis and the lack of finances in your parents' pocketbook. God is concerned about every detail in your life. But while you might be waiting for him to transform it and to take you out of a situation, he's got a whole nother plan. He wants to show you his glory. The things I've learned most about Jesus didn't come in my good times. It came in my hard times. I didn't learn about his grace because I had never sinned and fallen on my face. I learned about grace because I had fallen on my face and couldn't get up. And it was his grace that reached down and picked me up. See, every obstacle is an opportunity to see God's glory. He transforms what looks helpless and hopeless into life when we submit it to the Father's hand. But this is what I'm most excited about. This is the punchline I'm trying to get to. Y'all know Jesus can transform you. Do y'all, really? Now, some of y'all might think y'all don't need transforming. So it's time to say, I'm going to come over here. Do y'all know Jesus can transform you? Because, see, I don't know about you, but I know I'm a hot mess. Ask my husband. He's been living with me for 25 years. He knows I'm a hot mess. And I've read books. And I've gone on programs. I've even prayed. But nothing that I do could transform me. I was just pouring water and washing my hands and making myself clean on the inside. It was still a hot mess on the inside. Oh, but Jesus came. Whew. He came. He touched me. And with a word, I was transformed on the inside. Jesus can transform you. And some of y'all think that the transformation is complete because you ain't what you used to be. Because you don't cuss no more, and maybe you don't party no more, you don't smoke no more. You got that anger thing a little bit under control, or at least you know how to fake it now. You got a position in the church, you're a ministry leader, and you telling God, oh, I'm good, I'm done. No. As long as there is breath in you, the job of transformation is not complete. Until we behold him and look like him, there is still work to do. But the good news is you don't have to do it. Stop frustrating yourself. Stop frustrating the people around you. Because you know what? He's transforming them too. Some of us in our marriage relationships, we get frustrated with our spouses because they're not changing quick enough for us. We get frustrated with our children because they don't act the way we want them to act. We get frustrated with family members because they still back there doing what they used to do, and now we're over here. We can't transform But Jesus can. Not only can he, but he will transform when we submit ourselves to the master's hand. We celebrated 25 years of marriage this year, and I'm turning 50 in July. So our anniversary was last July, and as we got to the closer to 2020, I just began to pray, Lord, what do you want to show me in 2020? What do you want to do? What should I be praying for? And I began to pray that he would transform my marriage. Not that the first 25 has been bad, but I just believe he's got something more. I believe there is more. And I want everything he has for us. So my prayer began, Lord, transform my marriage. Make the next 25 better than the last 25. I want our marriage to look like everything you want it to look like. I want to experience everything within our relationship that you want us to experience. And as I began to pray, one morning he said, you really want that? Yes, Lord. Really? Yes, Lord. He said, cool. Well, then I'm starting with you. If you want your marriage to be transformed, you have to be transformed. The transformation in your life that you are seeking begins with you. God doesn't want a better version of you. He wants a new you. Some of us think if I can just get myself to stop doing this, or if I can just be more of this, if I can be my best self. Do you know your best self still ain't good enough in the eyes of Jesus? The Bible says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. No matter how hard you try, you still gonna fall short if your measuring stick is Jesus. But when we submit ourselves to him, he doesn't make us better. He makes us brand new. I want to be brand new in this next season of life. I don't want to bring any of the old, no matter how good it was. I want more. I want new wine. And so I'm waiting for the Father to transform me. Where do you need transformation in your life? Before we can see it, there are some things we have to do. See, there's God's part, and then there's our part. Mary said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. Transformation doesn't come just because we want it to, because we hope it'll come, because we wish it'll come. The key to your transformation is in your belief and in your obedience. The servants had to go take the pots. They had to go fill it up with water. They had to draw it out. And somewhere in their going and in their feeling and in their drawing, Jesus did a miracle. Some of y'all sitting still waiting for Jesus to do something, and he's waiting for you. You wonder why he hasn't told you the next thing you haven't done the first thing. You waiting for your partner to change, but Jesus is trying to change you. You waiting for your kids to change, but Jesus is trying to change you. You waiting for your co-workers to change or your teammates to change, and Jesus is trying to change you. What has he told you to do? You don't have to wonder, will it really happen? He's giving you a sign. All you have to do is believe and obey. Where do you need transformation in your life today? Are you ready to turn those dead religious practices that have left you dry and empty into a real relationship with Jesus? Are there obstacles in your life that you just can't seem to get through and you're waiting for transformation? Or is it just you? If you are willing to believe and obey, I I'm going to ask you to stand today. Lord, where do I need transformation?